So today is our final day of formal visioning. Real visioning doesn't have a formal end. It's always ongoing. So we've been hearing about the past, and we've been hearing about the present. And now we hear about the future. Visioning, it does not come from the pastor. That's a huge misnomer. I have been a part of interviewing for myself and interviewing other ministers, and invariably somebody will say, "What's your vision for our church?" I don't even know where the bathrooms are in your church, and you're asking me what's our vision for that? The vision comes from God through the people of God. Pastor's job is to help focus that and implement that as God leads his church. Collectively, God leads us. Because if it's only mine, then I've got to convince everybody to do what I say. But if it's God's through us, we're already bought in, and we know where God's leading us. We're here on this corner because God has a purpose for us to be here on this corner. And so today we're going to be hearing about what the future might hold for us, where we should be, what we should be about. It was 65 years ago that a young pastor drove up on top of the ridge overlooking Colonial Heights. There weren't a lot of houses at the time. And he would sit either, I don't know if he sat on his hood, or if he sat in the car seat, or if he stood. But Ronald Hicks surveyed the valley of Colonial Heights. And he said, "Lord, would you give this community to us, to our church, to your ministry, to the gospel? Would you give this?" Now there are many churches in our neighborhood and many more houses. So the question is, why are we here? What does God want to do through his people? And I'm excited to hear. Doris.
Good morning. I'm Doris Bush, for those of you who might not know me, and as Dr. Burton said, I will be talking about the future today, but first I wanted to say welcome officially to Sue and David and Kathleen and Donna. We are so happy to have you as a part of our congregation, and what we're doing today, we want to have everyone, whether you're a visitor, you're someone who's returned, as I see a couple of folks over here, to be with us again, but we value your input in what we're about today. And as Dr. Burton said, what we have been these 3 weeks, with today being the culmination of the time that we will actually have talked to you about this, but Tonda talked about the past. How did we get to where we are today? What is our heritage, our history? And some of the people who envisioned, and then as we saw that vision coming to fruition, coming into place, and how that worked. And then last Sunday, Brian talked to you about the results. Many of you, over 100 people, we got input from on what our strengths, our opportunities are for our church as we are today. And so looking at the past, seeing where from where we've come, the present, and looking at where we are today, and then the future, and where do we want to be in 5 years' time. And I think I have the easiest of the three, because much of what I will be doing is just helping, getting information from you and having you contribute, because it is, as Dr. Burton said, God speaks through his people, and we want to be sure that we had opportunity to hear from all of you, that you know that you have a voice, that you're an integral part of this congregation, of this church and its future. And we want to have that input from you. If we've got the first slide up. I'm going to tell you what we're planning to do, and if the ushers will be ready, I will let them know when they need to distribute these little packets. But what we're doing today is I'm going to take you orally down like 5 years from now to see what we are as a church. And we'll have 2 ways that you can give input on this. We have some hard copy folders that will be distributed to you, and pens if you need a writing implement. And then also, if you'll shift to the next slide, please. We also have a way that if you want to use your phone, or for those people who are at home and watching this later or joining us today and they're seeing when they see the service, that they can also provide input for us. But you can go on your phone to the heights.info as is shown on the screen, and you will find the same information that we will have in these packets. But right now, would the ushers go ahead? If you would like to have a hard copy paper that you can write on, would you raise your hands, please? And the ushers will bring that to you. And they also have pens if you need a writing pen. If you have any trouble getting on your phone to where you can make the input, just raise your hand and we can bring a hard copy file to you at a later point during this. And you know, I was going to suggest that you not open it, but it really doesn't matter whether you open it or not. We're going to do the same thing. So, all right, I think almost everybody has, right here we've got Charlie, have Dr. Burton over here. Okay. Does everybody have a file and a pen who needs one? Right. And folks have been able to connect on your phones. You know, I have Matt in the wings that if anybody has a problem, he can help you out on that. But, all right. Now let me tell you what we're going to do. I will lead you in this exercise, and I wanted to get this part about the files being distributed and that done so that you can please be attentive to this. This is a part of our worship, and we want to be prayerful as we go through this. I do think you'll enjoy the exercise. That's the experience we've had thus far, but it is important to realize that, you know, we're prayerful that God will speak through you to us and provide this vision for the future. And so please be prayerful as you do this. But we'll go through this, and then I'll give you after, if you'll just listen to me as I'm talking. And then at some point I'll ask you, okay, now go ahead and jot down the things that you saw in your vision. And then after a period of time, then we'll go to the next step. But I'll guide you along the way. So some people like to close their eyes, others just prayerfully consider, but if you would, just get very comfortable, and I am going to talk you through a visit to the future. Okay, everybody ready? All right. It's the year 2026. Tomorrow, you will participate in a church family celebration and dinner on the ground. Sounds like Baptist, doesn't it? You look forward to seeing everyone, including Greg Whitlock and other staff members and friends who have moved away. They're coming back to help us celebrate. It's been over 5 years since you participated in Colonial Heights Baptist Church's visioning process, a process that led to initiating many efforts that God has blessed with remarkable success. For the celebration, you've been asked to make a few comments about what has happened between 2021, Remember, there was COVID in there, and the present time. So you're getting ready to jot down some notes. You're thinking, what am I going to say when I make these comments about what are the changes that I have seen? What's in place now that might not have been there? As you collect your thoughts, you visualize the church now. And remember, we're in 2026. Do you see the church? What do you see? What looks the same as it did in 2021? What looks different? Who's here? What about staff members? What are they doing? How are the church members involved? What type programs are being offered? Outreach projects. Who are the leaders? How do our staff members interact with our membership? You think about when you arrived recently. Members greet each other by name and seem to know each other very well. There's a sense of fellowship and a sense of community that pervades the atmosphere. You can just feel the excitement and expectation. People are being saved and are praising God. The church is prospering. You remember a recent church conference. Attendance and giving, both for budget and missions, have steadily increased. You think about what makes our church unique and vibrant. The Colonial Heights community recognizes it as a shining star in its midst. It's always been special, but how has this increased sense of ministry and mission occurred? You mentally review the last 5 years as if you're rewinding a videotape. You remember how more members were enlisted to serve. We've always had wonderful facilities, including the Family Life Center. It's really exciting there now. How has its use changed to be such an important part of the church's ministry, both to its members and to the community? What about the use of other facilities? Do they look the same from the outside? And if they look the same, what about inside? Has it changed? More importantly, what about the people? God works through our people. There's such a broad cross-section of age, economic status, background, you name it. You think of the many services, classes, meetings held throughout the week, on campus and in other locations. People from all ages, all walks of life, children, teens, young adults, middle-aged, senior adults are serving and involved. We're reaching so many for Christ. A new system for greeting and ministering to visitors is in place. We hear from many how special they felt about visiting our church. What do we do? On Sunday morning, who are those people out in the parking lot? You consider the outreach efforts we have in the community. So many people are involved. You think about how we've expanded those efforts in the last 5 years. And worship is incorporated in everything we do. Now, you look down at the notes you've made. Are you surprised at the changes? When you participated in those visioning sessions, particularly that one on that September Sunday morning, would you have thought that these things would be achievable in 5 years? Well, you'd better finalize your notes and get ready for another of the wonderful fellowship times that is planned for tomorrow. Good night. Now, you're returning to September of 2021. And what I want you to do, either on your phone or there on your paper, look at that document 1 and take a few minutes and write or list, draw, whatever you want to do, but what you saw in your vision. And if you can be somewhat specific, that would certainly help us. And we've given you opportunity there to sign your name so that we know if we need clarification, we can come back to you. But just take a few minutes, and Thomas, we'll have 5-6 minutes here, and just jot down what you saw as I talked you through this vision of 5 years forward in our future. Go to it. be listing things, and that is fine. If you are continuing, then do so. But I want to ask you to look at that document number 2, the next question on your phone, but at document number 2, and that is to generate a vision statement. Now, we know that these, they're not going to be professional and that kind of thing. None of ours are. But just thinking about what you saw in your vision, and then you see those examples that are listed on that sheet. The vision statement, it outlines what we want to do as a church in the future, and it answers the question, why? Why do we exist? What is our story? What are our hopes, dreams, aspirations, and goals? We have worship and fellowship and discipleship, ministry and mission, and we do these things, but what are we hoping to get to? Look at those vision statements and then just think about that and see if you can jot down 1 or 2, whatever. But in your mind's eye, in terms of what a vision statement that would move us forward. Obviously, our mission is about the Great Commission and then the greatest commandment. We know that, but this is a vision that we can use for the next 5 years in working toward, so that we have a sense of our future. So take 2 or 3 minutes again, just spend a little time on that. You looking at me, so I think that may mean that you have done that. For those of you who still have things you want to include, feel free to continue. But if we could have the slide on the process that we are looking at for the visioning for our church, and letting you know you've seen this slide last week already, and it does show the steps we have followed to this, looking at the past, the present, and the future. And then there is as we gather all of this information, what God has given to you to pass on to us, and we pull all of that together and look at it with what we currently have, and we look at these vision statements, we'll be coming back to you with 3 or 4, I would say right now. And let us reserve the right to change this a little bit, because we constantly seek God's guidance on what we need to be doing with this, and then just working to minimize the time that we need to take in the church service. And I will take this opportunity right now to thank you so much for your participation and the prayerful way you did it. Matt, with the music that accompanied it, just gave us that atmosphere of worship that we needed to think about this. But I know a number of you have said, or have asked the question about, so once we have a vision statement and once we have this information that has come from the process, what do we do then? Well, we all know that sometimes things can end up on a shelf and nothing is done. Well, we are committed to you, to God and to you, that we're not going to have that happen. We will take we have a group, a team that's being put together, has been put together, and inviting others as well, but that will look at this and say, all right, so where do we need to go from here? And there will certainly be some ministry teams that are formed as a result of that, and we'll be coming back to you to hopefully challenge you, and as we challenge ourselves to find where God would have you to serve in the church. When we became Christians, when we opened our hearts and became the children of God, we were blessed with His Holy Spirit, and we were given spiritual gifts of service. And all of us have those. And so one of the things we'll be trying to do is to determine what those spiritual gifts are for everyone. Many of you know your spiritual gifts, but then matching those spiritual gifts and your service to the place within the church that feels good to you, but that you feel God, most importantly, that God has led you to. But we will continue to communicate with you to let you know where we are in the process. And at any time that anyone has a question or needs more information, don't hesitate to contact Tonda or Brian or me or the staff and let them know, because they can certainly pass that on to us. And now I want to, I do thank God for His faithfulness. He is ever faithful, and I thank you for how you've participated with us in these 3 weeks, the encouragement that you have given through the process that we've had. And I want to thank Dr. Burton, particularly for the fact that he's given us this time in the pulpit. This is important worship time, and because of the way you approached it, it was part of worship for us, and I really do appreciate that. Matt has been tremendously helpful all along the way in this, and particularly today in giving us that, helping us with that atmosphere of worship with the music. And I want to turn this back over to Dr. Burton, and just expressing our heartfelt appreciation for all of you, and being thankful for you, and especially thankful to God for His faithfulness.